Hello Greenstylers, Cynthia here, and today I have a sewing tutorial for the Tavi shorts. The Tavi is an easy to pull on shorts pattern designed for woven fabrics. For today's video, I will be making both the front and back pockets as well as the hem facing with V-notch. Here are the pieces that you'll need to cut. Before you cut, choose your hem option and use the pattern pieces that correspond with that choice. Cut 2 of piece P1, the front short, as mirror images. If you'll be adding front pockets, cut your front piece along the dotted cut line for front pockets, and make sure that you cut along the pocket cut line that corresponds with your mid or low rise option of choice. Choose your inseam length and cut along the 2, 4, or 6 inch inseam cut line. And here's a little tip for using fabrics that look the same on the front and the back. Find the wrong side and give it a little mark with some chalk, and that'll make it easier to find the right and wrong side as you work. Next is the back piece P2. Cut 2 as mirror images. If you're making the welt pockets, copy the welt pocket markings from the pattern pieces onto the wrong side of your fabric. Again, making sure to use the correct mid-rise or low-rise cut lines. Cut the hem length of your choice that matches with the front pieces you've already cut. For the front pocket option, you'll need to cut 2 of piece P5, the pocket liner, as mirror images, and 2 of piece P6, the pocket, as mirror images. Note the mid-rise and low-rise cut lines and cut accordingly. Cut 1 of each piece C1, the front waistband, and piece C2, the back waistband. Choose between the 1 inch elastic or the 2 inch elastic cut line. There's also a slight difference in width between the low-rise and mid-rise, so pay attention to that cut line as well. If making the back welt pocket option, you'll need 2 of piece P3, the welt pocket. Transfer the markings from the pattern pieces onto the wrong sides of your fabric. In addition, you'll need to cut 2 of piece P4, the welt pocket lining. If making the hem facing option, you'll need to cut 2 of piece C4, the back hem facing as mirror images, and 2 of C3, the front hem facing as mirror images. There are multiple cut lines at this angled end of each piece. Make sure to cut along the 2, 4, or 6 inch hemline cut line to correspond to your hem length of choice. If making the back welt pockets, you'll need some iron-on interfacing. I use this SF101, and I also have some from Wawak that I enjoy using that's very similar. You'll also need to cut some elastic for your waistband. The cut length is your waist measurement, either the natural or low waist, depending on your rise choice, minus 2 inches. We'll begin with the welt pockets. Spring over your back piece and ensure that you've copied the welt markings onto the wrong side of the back piece. If you haven't already, cut out your interfacing. You should have 2 pieces of 1 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. Lay them directly on top of the welt pocket markings, covering up that welt pocket opening. Iron the interfacing in place. I have a piece that I've already ironed in place, so I'll bring that piece over and also grab one of your welt pocket pieces. Now we're going to flip it over to the right side and copy the welt marking corners onto the right side of your fabric. Make sure they're lined up with the welt pocket markings that were on the other side as well. Make sure your markings are still intact on your pocket piece, and we're going to lay the pocket piece onto the right side of the shorts with right sides touching. So we have the right side of the pocket facing down, the right side of the shorts facing up. Line up the pocket opening marks and pin in place around that pocket opening. Use a straight stitch to carefully stitch along the welt pocket marking. Take your time to ensure sharp corners. You may find it helpful to stop stitching a stitch or 2 before the corner and hand crank your machine to make sure that your needle hits exactly on that corner and that you get a nice, perfect squared off corner. Mark down the center and out to the corners at 45-degree angles. Then cut along that center mark and carefully cut out to the corners at 45-degree angles along your markings through both layers. Clip as closely to the corner as possible without cutting through the stitching, and repeat for the other side. Sometimes I'll even come back with my tiny snips to get especially close to those corners and ensure nice sharp corners on that welt pocket. Fold the welt pocket in through the cut opening into the wrong side of the back. Smooth it all out and press it well. At this point, we'll be using the fold line marking that you transferred from the pattern piece onto your fabric. It's located just below the opening. Fold the pocket up along that fold line to cover the pocket opening. The folded edge will come just to the top of the opening. Press that fold in place. Now we'll baste the fold in place by basting the layers of folded pocket fabric. When making this basting stitch, just make sure to pull the back piece out of the way and stitch only through the pocket layers. Now use a top stitch to stitch around the sides and bottom edge of the pocket opening. Leave the top edge unstitched for now. You will notice that I've stitched all the way around the pocket opening on mine. We have changed the instructions since I took this video. So here's where your top stitching should be at this point. Now flip your back piece over so the wrong side and the pocket are facing upward. Bring over your welt pocket lining, piece P4, and pin the two pocket pieces together along the bottom and side edges. Stitch the two pocket pieces together using a straight stitch. Again, making sure that you're only stitching the pocket pieces. Fold the back shorts piece out of the way as you stitch. Then finish those edges using a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine or a serger. Now pin and baste the top edge of the pocket to the top edge of the back piece. And at this point, you'll complete your top stitching around the pocket opening by top stitching the top edge of the pocket opening. And this time you'll top stitch through the outer main piece as well as both pocket pieces. Let's complete the front assembly, starting with the front pockets here. If your fabric is very shifty like mine is, you may consider reinforcing this edge with some iron-on interfacing. It'll keep that edge from stretching as you stitch. Now bring over your pocket liner piece P5 and place it with right sides together onto your front piece P1. Align them along the curved edge and pin in place. Stitch using a straight stitch and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now flip the pocket over toward the wrong side. Press well and then bring it back over to your sewing machine to top stitch that edge about 1/8 of an inch from the fold. Now bring over the pocket P6 and place it under the front, lining up the edges. Both sides should be with right sides facing up at this time. Once you have the edges lined up, pin into place at the top and side just like so. Now fold the front over so that the pocket pieces are visible. The pocket pieces should be lined up along the curved edge, but if they've shifted a bit, adjust them as necessary. Stitch with a straight stitch and a 3/8 inch seam allowance, but if you want to make your seam allowance a little bit smaller, that's okay too. Then finish the edge using a serger or a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. Now lay your piece flat and pin or clip along the side and top edges here, and baste in place along both of these edges. Now repeat all of these front pocket steps for the other front and pocket pieces. I'll be making the hem facing option for this tutorial, but if you are making the hemmed version, head on over to the PDF tutorial, page 14, step 12. We'll begin by finishing the side seam edges of all 4 front and back pieces right along here, and we'll finish from the top down to the mark that we copied over from our pattern piece. Pair one front and back piece by laying them both right sides up on your table and flipping the front piece over onto the back, aligning at the side seam. Pin or clip in place, and we will stitch using a straight stitch and a 3/8 inch seam allowance down to the mark. When you get close to the mark, slow down, stop stitching right at the mark, and backstitch to lock your stitches. Press the seam open and repeat with the other side seam. Once both side seams are stitched and pressed, they will look like this, and there'll still be a little opening for the V-notch at the bottom. Bring over the other front back piece and place it on top with right sides facing, aligning at the front and back center seams. Pin or clip and stitch with a straight stitch and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Then finish or neaten the seams using a serger or a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. Adjust so that the front and back inseam are aligned. Pin or clip in place, and we will stitch these again using a straight stitch and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Then finish or neaten the seams using a serger or a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. With right sides together, place the front waistband onto the back waistband, pin or clip into place along the short ends, and stitch into place using a straight stitch and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Folding half lengthwise with wrong sides together, then press well along the folded edge. Bring the shorts and the waistband piece over to your table, and I'll give you a good frame of reference. We have the waistband here with the folded edge toward the bottom, the raw edge up at the top. We have the front waistband laying on top and the front shorts laying on top. I found and marked the front and back centers of the waistband in order to line them up with the shorts. Now we can begin pinning the raw edge of the waistband with the raw edge of the shorts, lining up the center front and back, and the side seams of the shorts with the side seams of the waistband. Add as many pins or clips as you'd like. When we stitch the waistband to the shorts, we'll be leaving a 2 to 3 inch gap at the center back. I like to add a few extra pins or clips there just as a reminder to stop stitching and leave a gap as I'm attaching that waistband. We'll stitch all the way around except for the gap using a straight stitch and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Thread the elastic through the waistband using the opening that you left in the last step. I like to use a safety pin, but use your tool of choice. Pull the ends out enough to overlap them and stitch together with an X to secure. Stretch the waistband and elastic a few times to bring the elastic back into the waistband and even it out. Fold the waistband back down and stitch the opening closed. Finish the seam with a serger or a zigzag stitch. Optionally, you can sew rows of stitches on the waistband at this point if you'd like. To make the hem facings, we'll lay the front and back hem facing pieces with right sides together. Pin or clip together at the short ends. Stitch using a straight stitch and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. For the angled edge, we will only be stitching from the top edge down to the mark, so just a bit above my straight pin. Here's how it will look after stitching. Then stitch the straight edge from top to bottom, again with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Press the short seam open, then using a serger or a zigzag stitch, finish the top straight edge to neaten that raw edge of the facing. Repeat these steps for the other hem facing. With right sides together, place the hem facing on the bottom edge of the shorts. Carefully line up the V side seam and the inner seam. Pin into place. Stitch using a straight stitch and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I'll start stitching just before the V in order to give you a good look of what that stitch should look like. We'll begin with a 3/8 inch seam allowance along the bottom edge of this seam. Once you get to the corner, put your needle down and lift your foot. Pivot so that your stitch will aim in a straight line toward the finishing stitches just above that V. Stop with your needle down and perfectly centered in the middle of the seam on that hem facing. Go slowly and hand crank that needle to get it perfectly in place if you need to. Lift your foot again and pivot to head back down the other side. Resume stitching at a 3/8 inch seam allowance around the remainder of that leg. Clip the corners and very carefully snip to the center of the V point. I like to also snip a little bit of the excess fabric, especially the folded bits, from the left and right side of the V, just to reduce some bulk in that V hem. Fold the facing toward the wrong side and push out the points of that V hem. You can use a blunt tool, but be very careful to not poke through that corner. And once you have it nice and sharp, give everything a good press. Once pressed, it will look like this, and the last step will be to top stitch that hem in place. Right along here, we'll be stitching through the front fabric and catching this finished edge on the inside. Lengthen your straight stitch to 2.8 or 3.0 millimeters and top stitch all along that edge. I like to use my fingers to feel that finished edge on the other side of the shorts and make sure that I'm catching it. This will be approximately 1 1/4 inches from the bottom edge. Clip your threads, give it another good press, and repeat for the other leg, and you are done. Congratulations on completing your very own Tavi shorts. We absolutely love this fun and easy woven project. I know you'll love your Tavis as well and can't wait to see what you create. Be sure to share your makes across social media using GS Tavi Shorts. We'll be looking for your posts. Until next time, happy sewing from all of us at Greenstyle.